So my name is Brett Oxman. I am from Castro Valley, California, which is a small town that very few people have heard of. It's not too far from San Francisco and Berkeley, which is interesting in itself that I wound up joining the military, having grown up there. I joined the Air Force as a chaplain candidate in 1982. And I retired from active duty as a colonel on March 31st, 2014.
What was growing up like those years?
A very liberal area at that time, the Vietnam War, very anti-military. I violently anti-military, anybody very unwelcoming and disparaging of anybody who would be seen in a military uniform, so much so that when I was my first decade on active duty, when we traveled on official business, we had to be in a blue uniform, blue dress uniform, in order to properly represent the Air Force. And it happened that I needed to be in San Antonio on the morning of Purim. So I went to a Megillah reading in Berkeley the night before. And this is 1987. Just to give you an idea how long that anti-military sentiment lasted. And this guy came up to me, and I was going from there to the airport. Now, today, his appearance would be considered normal, but I guess then it looked a little freaky to me. You know, half his hair shaved and the stubble dyed green, and the other half kind of sticking out purple, and he had earrings and whatnot. And he comes up and says, "Man, that's a nice costume. It looks so real." And I said, "Because it is. It's my uniform." And then he spat on me. So, that gives you an idea of even how welcoming at least some members, I wouldn't say the entire Jewish community, were.
How about your Jewish background of those days?
So I grew up we were nominally affiliated with a conservative synagogue. We also joined the local reform one. I've heard it claimed that California conservative is New York reform. I eventually became Orthodox, got a few Orthodox smichas, so I think that sort of allows me to say I'm Jewish.
So a very challenging environment to grow up in. Where did you get this kind of call to adventure? Where did you get the call to come into the military, considering the background you were growing up in?
My father-in-law was in the Navy Reserve, and I'd heard the stories of how he was enlisted during the Korean War, and that's when they called up all the officers. The officer corps was decimated. And then he was an officer by the time the Vietnam War came around, and then they called up the enlisted. So his military experience, he was a doctor. I had no idea about ranks and the different types of lifestyles depending on your rank. All I knew is that once a month, he and a couple of his buddies went to a military drill weekend, and they went to summer camp for a couple of weeks in the summer where they did duty out in 29 Palms and rented a hotel room in between so they could have nice air conditioning and television. And for 2 weeks a year and 2 days a month, he was making more money. You know, we seemed to be going to school and working day and night, and yet he was clearing more. And I figured, man, that's great. I think I got to join the reserves. The problem was that he wore a white uniform. I'm not the neatest eater in the world, and I realized there was no way that I could keep a white uniform clean and spotless. So I had to go for another branch of the service. So I went and looked up the Air Force Reserve.
I've heard lots of stories about how people got interested, but that's the first one where choosing a branch was based on the uniform.
Yeah, exactly. It was a dark blue uniform. I figured even the way I eat, it'll stay looking more or less clean.
The interest in going into rabbinical work, where did that come from?
I enjoyed being a counselor at Young Judea camps, and I was tutoring when I was in college, bar and bat mitzvah students for extra money. I actually had a good time about it. I had decided, and that's another long story as to why I chose in the end not to go to either medical school or law school. I had the opportunity for both, but decided I'd rather do something that was fun and I was interested in, as opposed to doing something that I was supposed to do because it would make a lot of money.